Hi, welcome to today's program, the Triad Corner. First of all, let me explain, I'm Lew Hathaway, the co-chair, along with Wendy Pearl of the Danvers Triad Council. And let's review what is the Triad Council. Well, it's a group of senior citizens that are working together to promote safety for seniors and to help seniors fight scams and other crimes against them. And we work closely together with the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Department, the directors of the Danvers Senior Center and the Danvers Housing Authority, the chiefs of the Danvers Fire Department and the Police Department, along with other social service agencies such as the North Shore Elder Services. Today's program is about fire safety and falls prevention for seniors. And we're going to discuss this in 3 steps. It's going to be talking about fire extinguishers, we're going to be talking about fire safety for seniors, and how to avoid falls in and out of the home. My guest today is Fire Prevention Officer, Captain Jim Brooks, and Jim will start us off talking about fire extinguishers. Jim?
Thank you, Lou. Thank you for having me back. It's great to be a participant with this program that you have with Triad. We work together well with the Senior Center and other community functions to make sure that our seniors are safe within the community. We do have state-funded safe programs for smoke detectors and lock boxes, which I want to make sure that everybody's aware that are out there. So if anybody needs to, would like us to come by for smoke detector reviews in their home or have a lock box installed on their door so that they can the fire department can get access to their home in an emergency, we can certainly take care of that. So today, the first subject that we want to talk about is fire extinguishers.
Okay.
And we have a great resource to us online. It's called fireextinguishertraining.com. And if you just put that www.fireextinguishertraining.com into your browser, you'll see that this comes up, and it's a real basic program that will help you understand everything that we're going to go through here this morning. There's even a test at the end of it, so you can test your abilities on everything that you've learned. So to start with fire extinguisher training, the first thing you have to understand is how fire actually works. For a fire to have a sustained combustion, you have to have 3 ingredients, and we call it the fire triangle. Within the fire triangle, there's heat, oxygen, and fuel. And when all of these 3 are together, you're going to have a sustained combustion. And understanding that if you take one part of that fire triangle away, you're actually going to put that fire out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's talk first about the types of fires. For our discussion today, we're going to talk about the 3 main ones, which is Class A, Class B, and Class C. Okay. There is a Class D and a Class K, but for our discussions today, we want to focus on the first 3. So your Class A is basically your normal combustibles like cloth, wood, paper. Those there can be extinguished by using a water extinguisher or by a chemical extinguisher that's rated for Class A. Your Class B fire is your flammable liquids, and your flammable liquids can be extinguished using a Class B rated extinguisher, which is usually a dry chemical extinguisher. And the last one we're going to talk about is your Class C. And your Class C is your energized electrical fire. Okay. Now, typically, there used to be a type of extinguisher called a carbon dioxide extinguisher, and that was particularly rated for that energized electrical equipment. But today, we're very fortunate to have fire extinguishers that are rated for all 3 classes of fire. So you can use that fire extinguisher that's rated for A, B, and C. So just to make sure we understand, if we have a toaster fire that's plugged in, it's a Class C fire. Right. If we unplug that toaster, it becomes a Class A because it's no longer energized. All right?
Definitely.
So the types of fire extinguishers that we're going to talk about today are the general type that you should see in your home. And there are some fire extinguishers that are rated for particular classes of fire, and it's important that you know that you have the right type of extinguisher matched up with the class of fire that you may be experiencing in your home. So what we're talking about today is the fires that happen in our kitchens at home. So we want to cover everything. We certainly want to try to get that extinguisher that has an A, B, C rating. And the way to find that out is if you look on the extinguisher, you'll see these little diagrams, and they'll actually tell you right here that this one here is a class BC. So this one's rated for flammable liquids fires and energized electrical. Now that's a nice one to have in the kitchen, but the best thing to have in an area where you may be needing it for something else is to have this one. And this one here, if you look closely, you'll see that this one's rated for A, B, and C. You can see by the little graphics that are on the extinguisher. So having this one in your home would cover all three classes of fire: Class A, Class B, and Class C.
Excellent. What is this up here on the top?
So when we look for an extinguisher for our home, we want to make sure that it has a gauge on it. And this gauge will tell us that if the extinguisher is ready for use. If it's in the green, you'll see that it's pressurized and it's ready to go. Anything that has the needle in the yellow, some of them have yellow, or where it's underneath the green, then you know that it's time to either replace it with a new one or get it recharged. And most of these are the disposable type. Okay? So the rules for using them, just like everything else in this world, there's rules for using everything. There's rules for using everything. And we use acronyms to help us remember how to use a fire extinguisher. And there's several of them, all right? So the rules for firefighting for, if you are in a building and there is a fire, there's the 3A one. And the first A of that acronym is to activate the alarm. The first thing you want to do when there is a fire in the building is to activate the alarm. And that means if it's in a residential home, you want to yell, make sure everybody's out of the house, because you don't want to try to fight the fire first, and if the fire gets away from you, then everybody that's in the home may not be able to get out if the fire progresses to a dangerous level. So the first thing of the 3A's is to activate the alarm. The second is to assist anybody in the area of the fire out of the building. Mm-hmm. You want everybody out. And then the last A of the 3A's is to attempt to extinguish the fire. And you should only do that if you're comfortable with doing it. I think the hardest part for a lot of people, because they've never used a fire extinguisher, is to decide whether or not that fire is too big and they shouldn't be trying to use the fire extinguisher. Mm. What we want you to do is we want you to be safe. So if you think if the fire is small enough that you can put that fire out with this extinguisher, then go ahead and give it a shot. If not, just leave the house and call 911 and get the fire department. They'll let the professionals handle that.
Okay.
So if you have to use it, all right, there is another acronym that we call PASS. All right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. So PASS basically is holding the extinguisher in your hand, pulling the pin. So pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze, and sweep side to side. And the idea is to get the extinguishing agent in here on top of the fire to smother it out. Okay. Because as we were talking a little earlier, remember we were talking about the 3 parts of the triangle?
Right.
All right, so if we are able to cover the top of a pan that's a grease fire, we're able to take out one part of that fire triangle, which would be the oxygen. Anytime you eliminate the oxygen from that fire, it's going to go out. And by using the extinguisher, we do that. But there are other ways that we can do that also. We can use baking soda. You can actually throw that on top of it. That will work the same way as the agent that's in this fire extinguisher.
Okay.
And there's actually, the way we teach, there actually was a slogan from the State Fire Marshal's office several years ago, and it was called "Put a Lid on It." So that's one of the things we recommend is anytime That's not what your mother told you.
No.
To put a lid on. No, it's a different
Yeah.
acronym. But
Yeah. Exactly.
we actually teach the young children in the schools that anytime you're cooking, you should have a lid that fits the size of the pan,
Right.
and it's for that reason. So
Okay.
you would slide the lid on it and take the heat away or turn the heat off, and that should extinguish it. And you'd leave it there. Same thing for an oven fire. Would you open if there's an oven fire, the best thing you can do is just leave the oven closed.
Okay. Very good.
So, how do you know if your extinguisher is okay to use?
How about this one here that does not have a gauge on it?
Okay. So some of if you go online, if you want to know if your extinguisher is okay, the first thing you want to do is check to make sure that there's not a recall on it.
Okay.
There's been quite a few recalls on fire extinguishers in the last few years. So just put in fire extinguisher recall and you'll get a lot of information that will help you research and find out based on the serial number of the extinguisher that you have. You'll see a serial number on the bottom of the fire extinguisher. But I can tell you by looking at this one that this is definitely one that's on a recall because it has the plastic neck on it,
Okay.
and it doesn't have the gauge.
Do all the fire extinguishers today have a gauge on them?
Have them, yes.
They should have.
These here, the issue is that these snap off sometimes,
Okay.
and they break. And the other thing is there's some of the agent gets dried up inside here, and it doesn't expel like it should when it's needed.
Okay.
So the best thing to do is to make sure that you check your extinguisher over, and make sure that you have the needle in the gauge correctly up in here.
Yep.
All right. The manufacturers of the fire extinguishers, they do recommend that these smaller ones, they should be replaced every 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
And it's actually nice to hear. We've been getting a lot of phone calls from residents wanting to know, first of all, where they can get rid of their old extinguishers. And the other thing is by them calling us, it tells me that they're probably updating them and putting new ones in, which is great because it's always great. It's good to have one of these in your kitchen. So if you're looking for a place to get rid of them,
Yeah.
you can, as long as you discharge the air that's in the cylinder itself.
Okay.
And I actually encourage the residents to go to an area outside where you're not discharging into your neighbor's house, but someplace where you could actually see what this does. It gives you an opportunity to do a little training.
Right.
And you can actually put a barrel out there and just shoot it into the barrel and see what it does. You'd be surprised at how far this will reach out when you're trying to extinguish something.
Excellent.
So there's a couple of other things too, now that I bring that up, that I missed when we were talking about using the fire extinguisher.
Okay.
And one of them is, if you're using it inside an enclosed room, is to make sure that you have an exit way to your back before you discharge it. When you're starting to discharge the extinguisher, you should be 6 to 8 feet from the object that you're trying to extinguish, and then work your way in. But always make sure that you have an escape way through at your rear, because once you discharge this extinguisher, your vision is going to be obscured because it's a very fine powder, and it's actually difficult to breathe once it discharges too. So between the fire and the smoke and the discharge of the extinguisher, you can imagine what the room's going to turn into. So it's always important to make sure that you have that doorway to your back.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's see. Fire extinguisher. How about? So with this one, like this is an old one here. Can once this is discharged, can I just?
You can just throw it right in the trash.
Okay.
Because then it just becomes just a metal object, and it's not as long as there isn't a pressure, the cylinder is not pressurized, it can be thrown right in the trash. If you're uncomfortable with doing that, you can certainly come and drop it off at the fire station, and we'll take care of it for you.
Excellent.
We'll be glad to take care of it. Like I said, we've been getting a lot of them in lately, and I think that's because people are paying a little more attention to it. So it's a good thing. So
that's good.
So that pretty much covers the basics of using and maintaining a fire extinguisher in your home. It's always a good idea to have one, especially in the kitchen. if you're going to put one in your kitchen, you should put it someplace where everybody can see it. I know everybody would rather not have it out visible, but if somebody has to use it and not aware that it's under the sink or in another section of the kitchen, that they won't be able to use it when they need it. But it should be, usually I suggest putting it by the exit doorway.
Okay, I was wondering, like, say down in the base, going down to into the basement.
Yep, that's
Okay.
not a bad spot too, as long
Yeah.
as you, when
Up
you,
high, up high, so that children and so forth can't.
right.
can't
We,
get it.
we do as a demonstration, we put it next to the stove and ask the kids, is that a good place for it? And
Yeah.
they're pretty smart. They say, no, it's not,
No.
because it's too close to the stove.
No.
So you don't want to put it next to something that may be the target of your use of the extinguisher too.
Okay.
So you want to put it away from that. And also, if you have it at the exit doorway, a fire starts in the kitchen at the stove, you go to the exit doorway, you turn around and that fire has suddenly got worse, you can just drop the extinguisher and just leave.
Right.
We prefer that you did that.
Okay.
Make sure that everybody's out of the house, and then the fire department's notified.
Excellent. Well, let's go on to some other tips about.
All right, so we're going to move into fire safety for seniors.
Okay.
'Cause that's a dear subject to you, as it is with
Absolutely.
me. I know a lot of our seniors are still smoking, so we have some recommendations for them if they are smoking. And most of it is just not to be smoking near medical oxygen. We certainly don't.
Right.
The oxygen would increase the intensity of the cigarette flame, so we don't want to do that. And you should be smoking outside. Secondhand smoke being one thing, but a good ashtray and disposal of the cigarette butts is always is very important. Two of them, and the subjects that we're talking about today are the two main causes for fires in homes today.
Really?
Smoking and cooking.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here. We're here to bring it to everybody's attention so that they're understanding of these subjects, and maybe we can help them a little bit. So in the wintertime, especially this time of
Yeah.
year, we have a lot of issues with space heaters.
Yeah.
And so that's one of our issues. We want to try to make sure that the space heater is at least 3 feet away from anything that's combustible. That's extremely important. There should not be any extension cords used on a space heater. They're not designed to have extension cords. They should only be plugged directly into an outlet.
What if somebody says, "Oh, I have a very large, the wired surge strip"? Okay. What about those?
Well, they certainly can do that, but the manufacturers that manufacture the space heaters,
Yeah.
if you read their instructions, they will tell you right in there,
Directly.
do not use any type of an extension cord. And
Okay.
the reason for that is that cord that's on that heater is not designed to be attached to an extension
Okay.
cord. The design is to be going right directly into a dedicated outlet.
Good tip. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So so cooking. There we go. That's the another leading cause of a lot of the residential home fires.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of suggestions that we can make to the seniors. And the clothes that you wear make a huge difference. If you wear clothes that are tight fitting, obviously it's going to be a lot safer.
Yeah.
We have bathrobes that have the long open
Yeah.
sleeves. That's always a level of concern. This is quite an interesting one here. It says you shouldn't be drinking alcohol or taking medication when you cook, but what they don't want you to be drowsy.
Right.
They want you to be alert. They shouldn't leave. Once you start to cook, you should stay there and complete the cooking that you're doing there. If you leave the room, then there's always a chance that something could happen there that will take off and you not be able to handle it. So simple things like oven mitts, handle hot pans, that's another good reminder.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks we only teach stop, drop, and roll to the little kids.
Yeah.
Well, we do teach it to the seniors
The
too.
seniors.
And it's a lot harder for them because they have to be a little bit slower about getting down and rolling around. But it's the same thing. And one of the key elements of doing stop, drop, and roll is to make sure that you cover your face. So you protect your face from the products of combustion if your clothes are burning. And you just keep rolling back and forth until those flames are smothered out. And going back to what we talked about earlier, the fire triangle, that's part of the fire triangle, is by smothering or eliminating the oxygen to that fire, or breaking up that fire triangle, eliminating a part of it. So
I found it interesting in that particular section there when talking about if somebody was in a wheelchair or a scooter. I've seen a lot of people in the scooters or they're in a wheelchair, and thinking about that stop, drop, and roll. How does that affect? How can they be aware of that?
well, they should have they should have something that they can smother that fire out if they're in the wheelchair. So there's a lot to think about, especially now if you're cooking. You have to kind of think of that too,
Right.
because they're not going to be able to do stop, drop, and roll. They're not going to be able to get out of that wheelchair. So it's extremely important. My suggestion is anybody that's in a wheelchair that's cooking should have somebody there with them too.
They should.
They're not always going to be able to, but I mean, there should be somebody there to help them.
But if they were to drop out of it, that wheelchair or that scooter has to be locked.
That's correct.
Right, so,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Smoke alarms. I can't speak enough about the importance of smoke alarms. We have, I said earlier, we have a smoke alarm program in the town, and it's funded by the state. And the great thing about the program that we have, it's for anybody that's 65 years or older that's living in a home. Now they can call us, and we will come by and evaluate what they have for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about the ones that we install is that they have 10-year sealed batteries.
Okay.
Which means, and that's, you don't think too much about it when you're younger and you can go up a ladder, but when you're a senior and you know how important it is to change those batteries every year, it's a little bit of a process. You shouldn't be up on the ladder anyway.
No.
So having a 10-year sealed battery is a great little feature.
Huge.
Because they never have to worry about that, changing that battery and worry about going up on that ladder. They should be tested at least once a month. Now these new smoke detectors also have a little hush button in the middle.
Yeah.
So if you're cooking and you do set them off, you can hit the hush button and it'll silence them for 5 to 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
You can hush it with a broomstick.
Yeah, all right.
So you don't, what that does is it eliminates people from removing them when they do go off because of faulty reasons.
And then forget to put
And
them
then
back
they don't
in.
put them back.
Yeah.
That's right, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
So everybody should have and they should practice. They should have a fire escape plan in your home, and you should try to have at least 2 ways out.
Okay.
And now there's a lot of rooms that you can't have 2 ways out, but if you are understanding of the fact that you're in a room that has only 1 way out, then you make other plans, and it's important to practice. When we teach this to the children in the elementary schools, they always try to come up with a scenario. What if I'm in this room and I go to open the window and it won't open, it's stuck? Well, that's what we mean by practice, is that you practice this so that window that you know that you can move that up and down when you need to, or you know that if you go to that window, you should have a ladder, an escape ladder somewhere nearby that you can throw out that window and use. So practicing
Excellent.
it is where you develop understanding of the things that need to be worked on more.
Right. Become comfortable with it. Yeah.
Yep. And this is an interesting one because recently there was a small issue with, actually not a small issue, a large issue with the 911 interface
Right.
where it went down, and everybody was told through text messaging that you should know what the direct number is to the fire department or the police. So within Danvers, our number is 978-774-2424 for the fire department. That'll go right to the dispatchers, and it's 774-1212 for the police department.
Yeah.
Those numbers will get you a dispatcher.
Yeah.
So we never thought we'd need that again, but it's technology sometimes isn't always there for us. Sometimes it does go down.
I thought it was good too. On my cell phone, I have the 911, but I also put police Danvers and then the number in there, and then
That's a good idea. Program it in there. So
program
all
it
you
in
gotta
there,
do-
so
yep.
you put fire Danvers and then the
Great idea.
number. Yeah.
Yep. And if you have some disabilities, so planning a fire escape for your home can be a little bit challenging. So with that in mind, there are certain things that you can do to help you be able to escape your home if there is an emergency. Things like having a flashlight by your by your bedside, You should have, if you're unable to be able to get out in an efficient manner, you should have a medical alert that can help you. Glasses, keeping your wheelchair where you need. Now, I was reading this one, and I thought one of them, things that I read on here was interesting. It said a whistle. That's an interesting one, too. So from our standpoint, if we're in a house that's filled with smoke and there's somebody in there and we hear that whistle will certainly help us get in the right direction and find where that resident is.
Excellent.
So that's an interesting one. And those things should be right by your bedside, right on a side table someplace, especially that flashlight. If you lose the power, you're going to need to have some way to see your way through there. So those are all the fire safety things for seniors. So let's talk a little bit now about
avoiding falls.
Falling. We actually, the Danvers Fire Department responds to a large number of calls for falls. Okay, so some of the things that we can do in our home can actually help us so that we don't fall, and some of these things are making sure that you're physically fit. All right, that's important. I mean, everybody needs to exercise. I probably don't exercise as much as I should, but we should all try to exercise. When you do things as a senior, and I'm starting to learn this, you got to try to do them a little bit slower. Understand that your body takes a little bit of time to do the things that you used to be able to do a lot quicker. So stairs and anything that you have at home, you try to keep it off of the stairs so you're not tripping, and that includes books, shoes, all the things we like to keep out there so we see them, treasures from the kids. You know, we want to see them all the time, but they should be kept in an area where we're not going to trip over them. And we talked a little bit earlier about flashlights, night lights. I put night lights in special locations in hallways so that they're always on, so we always are able to find our way even when it's really dark. So non-slip mats in our bathtubs, that's a great idea. Beware of uneven surfaces. One of the major contributors to seniors tripping is a rug that doesn't have double-sided tape on it, so that they trip on it, their feet get caught underneath it, and they'll trip on that also. So try to avoid the wrinkles and the folds in the carpeting. Also,
those non-skid mats, I've found, over the years, the rubber deteriorates and so forth, and you start tripping them over them, and you look underneath, you realize that they're not non-skid anymore.
No,
they really should be replaced.
I actually searched high and low to find some really good ones. There are some out there that are much better than others, and it's important to get the right ones.
Sure.
And your stairs should always be well lit. That goes back to what we were just talking about, all the lighting. The flashlight next to your bed is the best one. And the shoes that you wear can help too. If you don't have the proper shoes on, you could be tripping over shoelaces, or if they're not the right size, you can be tripping in that way. So those are all little things that can certainly help you when you're a senior, and that one simple little fall could be a thing that'll put you in the hospital. So taking and kind of reminding yourself all these little tips that were given the seniors can certainly help and keep you safe in your home. So that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, we really appreciate all this information. It's been a lot of information that we've learned today about fire safety and fire prevention, falls, so forth. But if you'd like more information about this, you can call the Danvers Fire Prevention Officer, Captain Jim Brooks, at 978-774-3917. And if you would like a printout about today's program, be glad to get one for you through the Danvers Senior Center, the Danvers Triad Council. You can call the Senior Center at 978-762-0208 and just leave a message there, and we'll be glad to get you this information about the topics that were discussed today. And we thank you very much for watching there. This is our 7th Triad Corner program, and we thank you, Jim, for being a repeat guest on our show again today. So thanks for listening and watching.